Thank you, and I'm really excited to be here. So I've turned my video on so that you can see me. I just appreciate when I am listening to someone, I can see them. So I will have my video on, and I will have sharing my slides. Feel free, please type in the chat box if you have a question. I'll see if I can answer it, or throughout the presentation, I will be asking you to do some self-reflection potentially if you want, and you don't have to type whatever you're reflecting in the box, but feel free to type it. I know a lot of us are feeling the same way, so it would be nice to feel normal about the way that we're feeling. So yes, I'm an engineer, life coach. I feel like nowadays mostly I'm a mom because I'm working from home. My husband and I are both at home, trying to do our jobs and parent the kids at the same time. And I know lots of us are in this situation. They're trying to do school and they're trying to be kids, and it's just kind of ridiculous some days, which is why I like to really hone in the life skills that I learned and teach and practice. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. So let's get started. So as I said before, I do appreciate if you want to type in the chat box, how are you? Like in general, I do this with my friends all the time, but I say like using an emoji or maybe just a word, how are you? Like, how is your day? How are you doing? This is like a global pandemic, and globally, we are all going through a lot of different things. So feel free in the chat box to type how you're doing, how you're feeling, maybe an emoji. Overall, maybe confused, scared, unsure, missing people, thankful for doing well, totally. So if anyone wants to type in the chat box or do an emoji or one word, anything. Want it to be over soon. Doing great, but missing companionship. Happy, but missing people. Yes, interactions. Feeling melancholy. Some days happy, other days sad, confused, lost. Very normal and very, I think, all of us. Yes, lots of ups and downs, trying to manage work and family. Grateful that I'm healthy and have a job, but at the same time missing seeing people. Yeah, totally. I think all these are, well, obviously anything that you're feeling is valid because it's real. Went outside yesterday, glad I did, or I would be losing my mind. Yes, oh my gosh. How thankful are we that it's actually sunny and nice out? Missing personal interactions, missing people, sad, confused, emotions all over the place. Yes, we are sort of, it's been a month. Oh my gosh, it's been a month. Some people are finally feeling a bit settled and have support. Overwhelmed. Oh, yeah. Guilty. Yes. That's an emotion that we feel a lot, some of us. Hard to manage time. Very good. Thank you so much for all your comments, and feel free to just type in the chat box as we're going. I am totally feeling all the same things. There's like this overarching, I'd have to say, global feeling as well. We individually feel something, and then whoever has people at home with them, you can tell there's like a feeling in the home, and then we have like this feeling on a global scale as well. So we will get into that, and all of that is normal and all of that is expected, especially during this really unprecedented time. Our brains are so confused. It doesn't have anything to take from the past to prepare us or help us cope with this situation. So that is why it's freaking out. Okay, so this is called emotional well-being. And before I had children, I actually never really thought about my emotions. And maybe that's silly to some of you, but some of you maybe also do what I used to do. And I never thought about my emotions. I never really checked in with them. I just knew if I was mad, um, it came from somewhere, and I dealt with it the best that I knew how. But I didn't even know that there were certain kinds of emotions, let alone where they came from. So the first thing that I want to talk about, and this will bring in the mental health and the emotional health and overall like how we're doing in terms of acting and stuff. I want to start with emotions. So we have this big tiger staring at us on the screen. And I put this guy here, or girl, I'm not sure. And immediately, of course it's on a screen, but immediately if there was a tiger in front of us, our body would have a reaction. That is instinct for all living species. That's how we stay alive, right? So if there's a threat or a danger that has been presented to us, our body instinctively, like the intelligence within our body, the intelligence that pumps our heart, that blinks our eyes, that all those processes that happen beneath our mind, that kicks in and instinctively we react, right? So there's danger, we react. And as we know, the reaction is the heart beats faster, the muscles contract, we have that rapid breathing, that rapid shallow breathing, and then like we get this energy that that we don't normally have. It just kind of comes up within us. And of course we know, like in terms of processes, that's our adrenaline and that's what happens in the body. But essentially, I want you just to remember that it's an instinct. It happens without our mind deciding that it's going to happen. And again, it's to keep us alive. It's a survival instinct. Okay? So that is how we evolved. We are humans. We have that. We're a living being. We, without thinking, will instinctively react to threat or danger. So let's continue on. Now we are humans that have evolved, and we have this part of the brain that many other species, if not any of them, have, and it's called the prefrontal cortex. So now we've evolved to this human species that has the ability to plan, to rationalize, make decisions, and the other complex functions, oftentimes called executive functions, right? We can plan in the future, we can rationalize, we can make decisions. That's what makes it so cool to be a human in this world today. But remember, we still have that instinct reaction within us. We still have that part of the brain that wants to keep us alive, and that's what it's designed to do. So our brain is searching, it's keeping us safe. Also, our brain is projecting into the future and projecting into the past. So we can think about past events and we can attach a story to it. Or we can think about potential future events, something that hasn't happened. That's the beauty of the prefrontal cortex, is we can think in the future. But what our brain does is we attach a story to it as well. So now we have more than just the present moment, more than just the tiger coming at us. We have whatever we've decided to put a story in the past and whatever stories we've decided to put into the future. So now we have this very large access. We have all these things that our brain is trying to find danger. So it's constantly scanning. That's its job. It's looking for the tiger to jump out of the bush. It's looking for something that's going to cause a threat. It's designed that way so we stay alive. We wouldn't stay alive if it's always scanning for all the happy, positive things. That's not its job. Okay, so now potentially you can see that there may be a problem here. So now, not just in the present, it's scanning. The brain is scanning in the past and in the future. So now we have a lot of things that are dangerous or potentially dangerous, or what the brain believes to be dangerous, right? So our survival instinct is reacting because it doesn't know that our brain is making up a story in the future. It thinks it's happening now. The brain thinks, oh crap, there's a threat in the future. I need to react. Or, oh yes, remember when that person made fun of me back in grade 2, and it reacts because that's a psychological threat, right? Because if someone makes fun of you, then you're instinctively thinking, I'm not part of the tribe. And then in the past, that would potentially cause someone to die. So basically the brain is always saying, oh no, I'm gonna die. Oh no, I'm gonna die. I need to survive, I need to survive. So it's finding all these things and all these stories. And what's happening is, because we kind of haven't evolved to a point where our brain knows that it's not true, we're in this fight or flight a lot. Almost, for some people, all the time. For some people, most of the time. And right now, we have the situation on a global scale that our brains are really doing a great job in trying to find the threat to us, right? So it's projecting, oh no, what if I get sick? Or oh no, what if my family gets sick? Or oh no, like it is just making up stories like crazy. Or oh, I can't do this. Or oh, I have to work from home and my kids are here and I won't get my work done, and what's going to happen? It is finding a ton of things to react to. Totally normal. Your brain is doing its job. So that's one thing to remember. Your brain is doing its job, and we can thank it for doing that. It is reacting to threats that aren't necessarily real, but the brain thinks it's real. Okay, so where I'm going with this is that in the past, before we had the prefrontal cortex, we didn't really have what we call emotions. We had reaction to danger. Now prefrontal cortex is here. We can plan future, past. We can basically project anywhere we want with our mental thoughts. That's where emotion was born. Is the emotion is basically that reaction to a mental thought. So emotion is a mental reaction. Emotions are caused by what you're thinking. Okay, so there is a difference between emotion and sensation. So a sensation would be something like hunger. That's where it arises from the body and then it goes to the mind. The body says, ooh, I need some fuel. It goes to the mind says, go get some food. And you feel hunger. Or even if we are threatened and there is a tiger in the bush and it's jumping out at us, it's going to arrive from that instinctive place in the body. It's not going to arise from the thoughts in your brain. Okay, so emotions are a reaction to what you're thinking. Emotions are caused by thoughts. Okay, that's really important. This was a game changer for me. This was like, oh, okay, well, if it's happening in my brain, then okay, if I'm thinking this, I'm gonna react. So if I'm thinking my child needs to get his shoes on right now because we need to get out the door, then I'm feeling something because I'm thinking that. It's not actually my child that's causing me that emotion. So big game changer for me, and being able to observe this throughout my life. And yeah, it took many practices. It has really changed how I react to things. Okay, let's keep going. So our brain thinks something, and then we have an emotion. We feel that emotion. So sometimes people call them feelings. sometimes we'll call them emotions. And the way I like to decipher the words is that the emotion is kind of like the vibration that happens in our body that from our brain. So we think something and then it goes into our body as a reaction, but then we feel it. So maybe we feel it in the tightness of our fist, like if we're angry, or we feel it in our gut, or maybe we feel it if it's like happiness. We feel that. Okay, so the emotion is kind of like the vibration that comes into our body, and then we feel it. So sometimes we call it emotion, sometimes we call it feelings. So what happens is, sorry, I just want to check the time. What happens is that, so we think something, it goes into our body, and in the past, like when we were like animals back in like caveman days, I'll say, is we would use that energy to fight or run, right? Like we would fight whatever we had to fight, or we would use that energy to run the heck out of there. But now we can't do that. Like we can't just sit in our office and then like have a temper tantrum like a child. Children are the best at letting that energy go. So whoever has children can totally know what I'm talking about. They will have temper tantrums, they will scream, they will hit, they will punch. Basically, they're trying to manage that extra energy that has now gone in their body. Over time, we learn that we can't do that, but then sometimes we don't figure out how to let that go. And if we haven't had the awareness or the knowledge about this, we've come up with coping techniques. Um, some people yell a lot. I don't know, like everyone has their technique. You guys might want to think about what yours is to try and let that energy out. I know one thing a lot of people do, and I used to do this in bed at night, like, is that you have a thought, maybe, this is silly, this is one I used to have all the time, is, uh-oh, what if, like, my house is gonna start on fire while I'm sleeping? It's like, it's a non-rational thought, but it would pop up into my head. And then I would get into a fight or flight because I was threatened by a fire that didn't exist, but in my head. And then that extra energy, I'd be laying down, so I'm not gonna walk it off or punch it out or stomp around the house like kids do or scream. Instead, all that extra energy would just go back to forming more thoughts. So it goes back to forming more thoughts. So, oh my gosh, there's gonna be a fire. I'm gonna have to jump out the window. Oh, and then my kids are gonna get stuck in the fire, and I'm gonna have to throw out the cloth and tie a rope and go down the whatever it is. And it just like spins. And I call this downward spiral of thought. And it's really very much anxiety driven, or it is what causes anxiety, is when those thoughts can't stop. Like you just feel like you have lost control of those thoughts. And it's happening because you have that extra energy created. Okay, so that's one way we have tried to deal with that extra energy. And another way that we try and deal with it is that, or we don't try and deal with it, where it goes into our body. And I think we all know this, is that we hold on to emotions, or it goes into our body in a way that likely interferes with the harmonious functioning of the body. So, I mean, there's lots of studies on this and how emotions are connected to physical diseases. So we have this extra energy, we can't get out like we would have in caveman days, or other animals have their ways of letting it out. So we hold on to it in our bodies, or we project more negative thoughts. So that's how we've tried to figure out how to deal with the extra energy. Both of those don't really serve us. If we put it into our body, we get tense and we get tight in our muscles, our neck, we get headaches. If we put it into extra mental thinking, we just like we can spiral really quickly. I really love, and I'll talk briefly what we should do with it in a minute, but I really love this image. This image, I found it back in like 2014, just on Facebook or something. And this is a really great visual about emotion. So, you know how I said that we can now think in the future and in the past? If we are thinking in the past and attaching a story to it that creates an emotion, the emotions that we would be feeling are like guilt, regret, grievances, sadness, bitterness, non-forgiveness, emotions like that. And they are very heavy. If you think about guilt, and I know some of you wrote that you are feeling guilty, it is heavy. Like it weighs on you. It is like a burden. A lot of us, I'm not sure about you ladies, but a lot of us feel it in our neck. We're like literally being weighed down with sadness, bitterness, grievances, and regret. Now, if we look in the future and we add stories that cause an emotion that doesn't serve us, we also get very heavy with, emotions that we have called anxiety, stress, worry, unease. And again, it's still heavy on the body. I would say with this global pandemic in the state of change that we're in right now, I would probably think that a lot of us are kind of projecting into the future, and we are feeling a lot of unease, a little bit of anxiety, worry, fear. It's because we don't know what is happening. We have no idea. Like our brain doesn't even know where to project into the future. Yes, overwhelming and guilt and complaining. I mean, we are like in full emotional turmoil right now. We are back and forth, future, past. I think all of us kind of understand this, right? And I mean, this is becoming more and more common for us to understand. And now we have this little guy, he's sitting in the middle with flowers around him. This image is showing that if we stay in the present and not project into the future or the past, if we are able to stay completely in the present and not attach a thought to what's happening in the present, then we have this place. And there different cultures call it different things, but basically it's a place of being very connected to the present moment. And it's like when like my husband and I used to go to Banff and Jasper and go hiking before we had kids. I know we can go when we have kids, but we just haven't. And that feeling that you get when you're on a trail or in with the nature, or maybe some of you jog, and the feeling you get when you're completely like not thinking about things and just totally jogging. That is that feeling of connectedness, and that's not an emotion that is created from your mind. Okay, those aren't the emotions that I'm talking about. That, like, some people might call it like pure love or bliss or connectedness, but basically it's we just aren't using your mind and we're not attaching a story to whatever it is that's happening. That state of presence is very important. And I think we know that lots of us probably do yoga, or we've tried meditation. In society nowadays, we know how important this state is, and we do try and do it sometimes. Yeah, and basically it's a reprieve from our mind creating stories about things that are causing emotions that are weighing on us. Okay, so this, how lots of people are coping with the current situation is really trying sometimes to have those moments, whether that's just in the shower. I know I have 3 kids at home and my husband, and we have a dog. The only alone time I have is in the shower. And I literally just stand in the shower and let the water like wash down. And I don't think about things. And I would say that's like the closest that I go in that state. However, we can be completely in the present moment and have emotions. Totally, we can do that. So we can be completely in the present moment. Like I'm looking at the computer screen, I'm talking, but I can still attach a story to what's happening in the present moment. And if you attach a story to it, that means you're using your mind and there will be an emotion attached to that. Another thing our brain does, it's designed this way, is that it thinks in black and white. It thinks in good and bad. It thinks as, I like this, I don't like that. So often, if you are in the present and you see something, you say, I don't like that, you are attaching a thought that's creating an emotion, even if you're in the present moment. One thing my 9-year-old is doing all the time, and I just think it's really interesting to watch him, is he doesn't like his present moment and he gets bored all the time. This is boring. And like he's not projecting in the past or the future, he just doesn't like the present moment and he's decided that it's boring. So essentially what I'm saying is we could, whatever the case, if we attach any thought to it, we will have an emotion. If we can get in that state of no thought, it does feel very, very good. It's basically just a reprieve from the mental chaos in our brain, which is, there's nothing wrong with the mental attachment. It's just, it will create an emotion. So let's keep, oops, sorry. So that, I guess what I've talked about a lot are the negative emotions. And when I say negative, I just mean that it causes your body to not feel good, negative. So maybe it's, it causes stress in your body, or it causes you to like kind of feel sick, or it just like in a way that doesn't feel good. That's what I define a negative emotion. And like I said, our brain actually looks for danger. So typically, if we're not being practicing like conscious thinking, we will have a lot of negative emotions because that's our brain doing its job. But we do have positive emotions as well. We can think things that make us feel good. Joy, happiness, pride. Pride feels really good. There are lots of emotions that are positive. And positive and what I mean by that is it feels good in our body. We like the way it feels. That's why some people, I don't know if we all believe this anymore, but at one point everyone was like, I just want to be happy. I just want happiness. Why can't we just have happiness? Because we love the way it feels. Or I just want to be satisfied. I just want to be certain. Those are all ways that feel good in our body that's created from our mind. Now, what I believe and what I have learned and what I practice and what my coach coaches a lot is that the human experience, through the human experience, we have a brain, we have a prefrontal cortex, we attach thought to things. That's being a human. So we will experience emotions most of the time. So what we can do is we can practice like having positive and negative emotions. Really making it a habit to practice creating those positive emotions as well. Even though our brain kind of likes to do the negative a little bit more because it thinks it's doing it to keep us safe. So it is a practice. Um, I forget the author. Sorry, I was just looking at my books up here, but one of the authors that I read about, he likes to call it planting flowers and picking weeds. So if you can plant some positive thoughts in your brain, that would be awesome. And then if you can try and become aware of those negative thoughts and pluck them out, then that is how you plant flowers and get rid of weeds, but you're going to have them both. So that brings me to, so can we just control our emotions? Or like, if my brain is creating them, then maybe I should control them. So I want to talk about that. And the answer is, in short, yes, we can totally control our emotions sometimes. And no, we can't control them sometimes. So yes, if we become aware of what we're thinking and feeling, then you do have control over them. If we didn't know beforehand that we create our emotions, and just knowing that, you will become aware of them more and more and what you're thinking, then yes, you can control them. But what happens is that we will have thoughts that come without us knowing, and it triggers an emotional response very quickly. And it's so quick that our mind doesn't even have time to comprehend what we're thinking, and we respond. This happens all the time because we have thoughts within our brain that are unconscious. We just don't know they're there. I like to think of just as a visual, I like to picture our brain as like a library, and we have a whole bunch of books in there and each book is a thought. And as a child, before our brain was fully developed, we were given books to put in our brain. Like, people told us this is how you should think, and they've put it in our brain. Or we didn't know what we were supposed to be thinking, and we came up with our own mechanism of thought and we put it in there. And then as we grow older, we have more people telling us what to think, or more decisions on how to think about things, and they just keep going kind of in our brain. So then we develop this big library of thoughts. So sometimes back on the dusty shelves, we don't even know they're there, but we are pulling them out all the time. And like I said, a lot of those thoughts were developed in childhood, and we just don't know that they're there. It doesn't mean that we had a bad childhood or anything. It's just that that's what children do. We try and figure out ways of dealing with things. And again, our brain doesn't even know if it's real or not. And then we come up with these strategies. So some of the unconscious thought patterns that are kind of typical, that you may or may not know that you have, is people can't be trusted. Nobody respects and appreciates me. I need to fight to survive. There's never enough money. Money is a tricky subject on its own. Lots of us have these unconscious thought beliefs that we don't even know. Life always lets you down. I don't deserve love. Okay, so lots of these, again, were developed when we were children. We're just not aware that they're there, but we're using them all the time without awareness. Nothing wrong with that. That's totally normal. So what I've been learning, I went to a life coach. I loved it so much that I became a life coach, and then I teach people this, is that we can become aware of what we're thinking. We can become aware of what we're feeling. And these take practice. It's a skill. And we're not just overnight going to know what's in our brain library. It won't present like that. What will happen likely is we'll come to a situation like this, where we're forced to question some of our thoughts or beliefs. So one of the exercises that I like to do, oops, sorry. Yes. So one of the exercises that I recommend all of us do, I do it all the time. I did it before COVID-19. It's just, I have a ritual that I do at night, but it's to become the watcher. So basically, you slow down. So if everyone wants to do this with me, you don't have to. Obviously, you don't have to do anything. But if you want to, we can do this exercise very quickly. We just take a deep breath. And most importantly, a long out breath. The out breath is what tells your body to calm down. That's why we do those big sighs, right? At night, you might be thinking about a lot of stuff, and then all of a sudden you just have like this big sigh, roll over and go to sleep. It's the out breath that really triggers to the body that we get out of fight or flight and we move into relax. So if you do that, you try and calm the body down. My body's not coming down. And I think it's because I'm giving this presentation. But we calm down. And then we try really hard to just observe your body, right? Where are you holding tension? Where are things, quote, moving? Like, where is it in your body? If anyone wants to type in a chat and tell me where it is, for me, it's definitely the shoulder. Actually, mostly my right shoulder. That is very tight. And then my neck. Yeah, shoulders and upper back. Oh, yes, the jaw. Very good. I clenched my jaw all the time. Ooh, yeah, the chest, very tight. I also feel it in my gut, Like, actually, I've known this for me. My neck, yes, my neck. Ugh. So basically just kind of slowing down and checking in with the body. That will allow you to become the watcher and allow you to try and find where you're holding emotion. And when you do that, sometimes you will know that it's fear. Like, if you go back to your body, what is the emotion? Is it fear, sadness, grief? Sorry, lady. Yes. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going back to a question, and it was, do you find that your thoughts make you second guess everything a lot more lately? Yes. Everything. I actually, sorry, I literally got out my journal one time and I put, this is what I believe. This is what I know that is true. And I wrote down some things so that I could go back to it later and be like, oh yeah, this is true. So yeah, I think our brains are really tricking us right now. And it causes us to think these thoughts that create emotions, and then we get stuck in that downward spiral. So what I recommend is we have to get out of the spiral. We have to get out of being attached to the emotion. And the way that I do that is the watcher. This is literally what I do every day. I watch, so I try and calm down. I watch my body, or I feel my body, I guess. I don't know if I'm watching it. I feel my body without touching it, because I've told my kids, well, what does your body feel like? And then they'll start touching their hands and stuff. But like, no, feel within your body. Where are you holding tension? Tension is likely a sign that there's negative emotion there. It just came to my attention the other day that I was holding a lot of grief. And once I learned that grief was there and it was like in my throat, like I can still feel it actually. It makes me get really like what people would call emotional. But it like sitting there, it's sitting there for me, and it's like I just haven't let it out. So grief, whatever the case, everyone will have their own. And this is an exercise you can check in with your body, and you don't have to know what's right or wrong. You can just literally observe, be the observer, and just become aware of it. So that's what I would do. If people are very in touch with their body and their emotions, you can use the body as a compass. If sometimes people aren't as connected to their body and their emotions, which is totally fine, they're more connected to their thinking and their thought processes. And I don't want to generalize between men and women or anything, but I do know my husband is more attached to his thinking than his emotions, and I can more connect to my emotions than my thinking. Again, I don't know. Those are just us two people. So when I say, how are you feeling? He'll be like, I'm feeling like that person shouldn't have done that. I'm like, oh, that's a thought, but sure, that will work. So what you can do, and if you can't really get in touch with your body or get an emotional read, you can just do a thought download. And I love these. And it's basically, I literally take my pen and paper and I give myself time to vent without thinking about what I'm writing. Like, my husband should have been looking after the kids when I was trying to do that, and he should be downstairs. Whatever comes to your mind, you just like literally write it down. And the exercise is important is that you get it out of your head and down on the paper. You don't want to tell your brain what you're thinking, because your brain is trying, like, you don't want the brain to be doing the job. You want to take it out of the brain, put it on paper, and then view it. You don't want your brain to remember what you said while you're looking at your brain, if that makes sense. Okay, so I do this all the time as well in my journal. Is if I'm just really anxious about something or something's really bothering me, like I've been dealing with like a lot of resentment towards my husband, and I figured it out, and it's nothing to do with him. But so I knew it was there. I didn't know why. I like wrote down everything, and I was like, oh, well, that's why it's there, because I think he should do that, and that, and that. And whenever you think someone else should behave a certain way, you're going to be creating a lot of negative emotion within you. Okay, so that's the way you can watch. I guess that's where the watcher comes in. You can watch your thoughts. Look at them from from the outside, and then you have more awareness. Then you're not attached to them. Then you can look at them from that prefrontal cortex and rationalize, whoa, that doesn't really make sense, or that does make sense. Okay, so let's keep going. So those are two exercises that are very important. And then another one that I have, it's a tool that I use all the time, and it's taking the first exercise and then doing something with it from what you've found. So like I said, whenever something happens in the world, we as human beings will attach a thought to it. That's how we operate. We think something. So when we think something, we will feel an emotion in our body. Again, the emotion comes from the thought. And then when we feel something, like maybe it's anger that we're feeling, we will do something. Like if I am very angry at the dog for barking, I will probably yell. Like I will take an action from that anger. I'll yell at him to stop barking, and I'll go over to him and I'll pull him away from the window or something like that. And then the result would be that I'm angry at my dog, and I got distracted from my work, and then the result will prove what I was thinking, which was likely that my dog is distracting me from my work. Okay, so there's like this tool where you can like pick your brain, pick your body, And then you can put it into this systematic way of like processing it, which I like. So again, I call, my coach calls it the self-coaching model. My coach is the life coach school. We have a circumstance, we think something that causes the emotion, and we feel it. When we have that feeling, we will take action, and then we'll have some sort of result. So a lot of time, people now, for example, they're saying like, I just want to be productive at work. I just want to be able to do work. So then you can go, okay, wait, let's use the model. And you can say, what do I want in the results? You want to be productive. And you get specific, like, I want to finish reviewing this paper. And then you can like fill in the rest and try and figure out, well, what action do I have to take to read this paper? And probably you'd have to sit down and read the paper. So what feeling do you actually need within you to sit down and read the paper? And it could be determined. Maybe it's curious. You're wondering what the paper says. And that would be up to you guys, or for you in that particular situation to figure out. But you can kind of work the model and plug things in to figure out as a tool what might be happening in your life. So if you're having certain thoughts like my dad should be more careful during COVID-19, and then you probably feel worried, and then you probably act, I'm not sure, you'd have to check into it, but you probably start telling your dad what he should and shouldn't be doing. And then the result is you've kind of disconnected your good relationship with your dad. And then it brings you back to the thought where your dad is not behaving the way you want him to. So I don't know if that's helping anyone. So you can basically just bring awareness with this model. Okay, so if you wanted to do it, like one of the circumstances that is affecting everyone is that we have COVID-19 happening now. And that is something that's happening outside of us. And all of us are attaching a thought to it, or many, many thoughts. And that's why we're in emotional turmoil. Because we have these, oh, I'm grateful to be at home with my kids, but oh, I hate being at home with my kids. And you can have the same thought, or like you can have different feelings about similar thoughts. Like, I like being home with my kids. Ugh, I don't like being home with my kids because I can't get my work done. I like being home with them because I love playing with them. And then you feel whatever the thought, you're going to have a feeling attached to it. Again, this is just a tool that I love to use to just bring me back to that point where I bring awareness to what's happening. And again, you can do that awareness, watch, observe tool to figure out what your thought line is and your feeling line. Or maybe you know exactly the action that you're taking, but you don't know why you're not getting the result. You can go back and see what you're truly thinking and feeling. Okay, sorry, let's wrap up because it's already 12:51. So what is emotional well-being? Which is basically, how do we feel? How do we be well with our emotions? And my definition of it is it's empowerment. It's really taking responsibility of yourself and use the power from within to create. So it's really taking responsibility for what you can control. And the only thing ever that you can control is your thinking, your feeling, because your feeling is attached to your thinking, and your action. You cannot control the circumstances that are happening without you, around you. You can't control other people. You can't control your children, your husband. You can, request things, but you still never can control them. You can't control your coworkers. So really finding the power of what you can control, which is your thinking, your emotions, and your action. So really practicing that and really taking the power back to yourself. So let's finish with the steps to emotional empowerment. So how can we feel well? How can we be well with our emotions? And number one is understand that your emotions are caused by your thinking. Okay, this is both the awesomeness of being a human and maybe the downfall sometimes, is that we create our own emotions by what we're thinking. Our brain has been wired a certain way. That's how we arrived in this world. We are human beings at this point in our evolution, and we cause our emotions from what we're thinking. Now, like I said before, we have both positive and negative emotions, and they are not bad. Negative emotions are not bad, positive emotions are not bad. They just are, and they're created from your thought. Now, I recommend that you embrace the fact that you're going to have both. Because if you try and only have positive emotions, then you're adding a negative emotion on top of your already negative emotion that you will inevitably have, because we have like 50-50, if you want to think of it like that. So if you're thinking I shouldn't be guilty, then you're guilty for feeling guilty, and now you've like compounded your negative emotion. So that goes to step two, is just being aware of your thoughts and your emotions. Really be the watcher or the observer. Allow it to arise if it's there. Like if you are truly feeling guilty because you're not getting work done because you have kids at home, like me, for example, allow it to be there and understand why it's there. It's because I'm thinking I'm not getting enough work done. And then you can like go back to that thought and be, well, am I getting enough work done? Who told me how much work to get done? And you can kind of question that. But first you have to let it arise so that you know that it's there. You feel them, you see them. Okay. And then the next thing is you have to accept that they are your emotions. They are there, they are real. You can't just say, oh, I don't want to get angry at this. Well, you're already angry at that and you are already feeling that, whether you pretend you aren't or not. So the key is to be like, oh, okay, I already have anger within me, and okay, that's fine. I'm not going to judge it. Maybe I will understand why it's there. So you can go back to think, what am I thinking that's causing me to be angry? Do I want to be thinking this? And then the big thing that I practice is compassion. My brain is doing its job, so thank you very much. But I'm okay. You don't have to put me in a fight or flight because I'm not actually in danger right now. It's fine. And then the last one, which is once we understand and we bring awareness and we practice awareness and we are accepting of it, the most beautiful thing about our brain and our prefrontal cortex is that we can actually we are the creators of our life. If we have that awareness of what we're thinking and feeling, we can create actions that can create results that we want. We aren't at the effect of the world around us. We aren't at that if we can bring awareness to what we can control, and that's our thoughts and our emotions. It's very powerful and a very exciting to know that our emotions are created by us. Even if they are subconscious and we don't know what we're thinking, we can just have that knowing that it is created by my mind. So maybe I can bring awareness to it. Maybe it will surface and I can change it if I want, or keep it if I want. Okay, so I have talked and talked and talked. I appreciate you listening. So maybe if you want to type in the chat box, I would love to hear, if you can identify it, what is the primary emotion that you're feeling right now? content, curious, separation, anxiety. Yeah, you know what? Anxiety, of course, you can Google it and find out what it means and stuff. The way I like to think about it, because it helps me, is anxiety is essentially, um, the way I like to think about it is like it's compoundment of a bunch of emotions, and that I'm just a bit confused and I don't really know. Yes, anxiety is like not knowing. Um, so what I like to do when I feel anxiety, and I do, I would have to say, yeah, totally ungrounded. Yeah, because you're literally like, I don't know how to describe it, but it feels like you're kind of like floating and aloft. Is I like to try and narrow down, um, maybe just one thought, one thing that keeps running in my mind. Um, so one of the things I used to have anxiety about was parenting. I had postpartum anxiety. I didn't even know about it until after. And the thought that was really compounding an anxiety for me was literally, it came down to that I thought my kids were gonna die. This sounds so morbid, but like that was what was causing me, like I had to control everything. Like I didn't want something bad to happen. So I think a lot of fast forward now is we want to control everything and we don't want bad things to happen. And I think anxiety is one of the things we feel about that. So what I suggest is, what do you have control over and what don't you? I, again, have a list, I like making lists of what can I control and what can't I control. And then I just really like zoom in to what I can control, because we like to feel control. Our brain likes to feel certain. It likes to know what it's doing. So if we can sort of find something that helps calm down our brain a little bit, that's really helpful. Yes, it does. It takes a lot of mental energy to control our cognitive distortions too. Exactly. And we don't have a lot of energy right now because we're wasting it all. Well, not wasting it all. We're using it all. And if we're not using it on our emotions, we're using it physically with trying to take care of the situation around us. This is a practice. It is a continuous skill and practice. And it doesn't happen overnight. Um, like I think we will be doing this until we pass on, like trying to really understand what thoughts make sense and what don't, and are we exaggerating. And there are many different cognitive distortions that we do have, that we could get into, but it's basically like over exaggerating something, or like they always do this, or blaming people, oh, it's that person's fault, or blaming the past or stuff. Like it really, all there are patterns of thoughts, and it takes a lot of time. Yeah, yes. So it's hard to judge if, um, it's hard to judge if your emotions are appropriate or if you can trust them right now. Yes. What I would say is, whatever emotion you're feeling, it is appropriate in that moment because it's happening. So it's happening because your body and mind are trying to cope with something. So that's your coping mechanism. Later, if you can bring awareness to it, then you can decide if you like that coping mechanism, or if you'd like to dig into it a little bit deeper. Oh yeah, Donna, totally. I have like a list. It's actually in my office if you ever see it. I've got a list of emotions. Donna says that I realized I needed to Google what types of emotions. Yes, I have made a list of like named emotions like guilt, fear, and stuff like that. And I used to put it actually on my wall at home so that I could. Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yes, we are totally out of time. I think it's 1 o'clock. It's 1:03. So I will leave you with that. If you guys have questions, you can email me. You can contact me, Tracy at tracymcarthur.com or tracy.mcarthur@USAS. I love talking about this stuff. So if you ever just want to chat with me, like privately, I would do it. Okay,